Jesse, I'm going to talk to you a few minutes about the bureaucracy of the city. Um, any government functions bad or good based on the effectiveness of the bureaucracy. In the case of the city, it obviously starts with the mayor and the city council, and you, as mayor, would have to work with the city council. How do you think what do you think about the size of the city council at the moment? Is it too small, too big, about right?
Of course, if you had fewer people, you'd have fewer people that need to agree to get something done. So I would favor something smaller than what we have today. But whatever the size, my notion of governing would be to be cooperative and have it be a collaborative process. For instance, in the budget development process, to have the council completely included in the process as we go through the budget analysis, to not advocate my responsibility or the executive's responsibility to make the hard choices that need to be made, but to explain to the council and the public as we did that what's being done and why, and offer them the opportunity to make suggestions as we go so that it's not a take it or leave it deal at the end. The fewer the people, the fewer disagreements, I believe, the easier it is to get something done, so I would favor something smaller, but whatever the size, my approach would be to be collaborative and cooperative.
Do you believe that the committee structure that is used by the city now should stay in place? And would you continue that?
A lot of the council meets infrequently. There's no way to conduct all of the business that needs to be done by the council in the meetings that they have. So the real work in terms of developing legislation, doing study work, is done in committee. And I don't know how you do that other than by continuing that process. If you discontinued the committee process, then you'd have to find something else that's pretty similar to that to replace it. Unless there's something that works far better than what we have today, and I'm not aware of what that would be right now, I would continue the committee process. If someone made a suggestion, again, inviting the best ideas by the best minds, if someone thinks out of the box and comes up with a better process, then of course I'd be willing to consider that, and to the extent that it proves itself, to implement that, to support the implementation of that. But you need some place where the real work of the council can get done other than voting on legislation. And I think the committee process allows that to happen.
Any bureaucracy generally is dependent upon the people that make it up. Would it be your intention as mayor to, one of your initial acts would be to ask for the resignation of all of the commissioners that are in place at the moment?
My initial approach would be to do a top-to-bottom audit of all departments. And it's not political with me. So it's not about someone having been in position on someone else's watch and therefore being unfit to be on mine. It's whether or not the person is getting the job done that needs to be done in the way that it needs to be done. Everyone would understand that it's about performance. And to the extent, my commitment is to having best people in the positions without prior loyalties or relationships. It's not about what I want, it's about what best serves this city and the people who live here, the people who elect us, the people who pay our salaries. So if someone is proven not to be doing the job, then my first order of business would be to replace that person. To the extent that they're doing a good job and want to continue doing a good job, then I'd be inclined to keep them in that position. And that also has the benefit of being familiar with the territory, so that you don't have to go relearn the process, relearn the job over again, which creates certain inefficiencies and difficulties, as you well know. So while everybody would be subject to evaluation, my inclination would be to keep those who are performing well and who intend to continue doing that.
You will initially, if you are successful with the election, Jesse, have to find a new police chief. I believe the current chief has indicated his intention to retire. As you would move to replace any of the senior people, do you have in mind how you might go about that?
My preference, my preference would be to locate a police chief locally. My commitment is to having the best person possible in that job. I would be inclined to reorganize the police department. One of the problems we have is that we're not sure that we're capturing all of the federal funding and grants that are available for police services. I would reorganize with a commissioner of public safety, and I would combine the police department, EMS, and Homeland Security with fire rescue. And then I'd have a commissioner of public safety to whom all of those heads would report. I'd have a police chief who's strictly responsible for delivering police services on the ground. And I'd have a commissioner of public safety who would be responsible for communicating with, interfacing with the community, but also making sure that we're taking advantage of the funding sources that are available to us to make sure that we're getting the benefit of all that's available. So I would reorganize a commissioner of public safety, a police chief, and a fire chief, and others who are focused on the ground on delivering the basic services they're in place to deliver. And I'd get the commissioner first.
Do you have in mind at the moment any other areas that would require some attention in a reorganizational sense?
Well, when we were talking about the Department of Watershed Management, in the employee surveys and also in the audit, there was a lot of talk about the fact that so much is being outsourced in that department. It's interesting because people talk about privatization all the time. There's a lot of privatization of the city already that just doesn't get disclosed until we do something like the audit that was just done. My inclination would be, or my plan, my intent, what I would do is to bring that expertise in-house. Over the long haul, I think it'd be more effective and cost efficient. We don't even do our initial pricing for those capital improvement projects that are being done by Watershed Management. We don't do any testing along the way to make sure that the initial estimates are in fact in line with what's actually happening on the ground. And to the extent that any of that's being done, it's being outsourced to consultants. And I believe, I can't help but believe and know that if we had the expertise and experience in-house to initially price those projects and then to follow them through from the design through construction and delivery, that we could develop some efficiencies, some cost savings that would be far better for us than the way we're doing it now. So I would have each and every one of the departments audited just like now and start out by implementing the recommendations we already have in hand. A lot of what needs to be done with respect to the departments, there's a Bain & Company study that was done for the finance department. There's the Deloitte & Touche study that's been done. There's been studies of the jail, A to Z. The first thing to do is not go do additional studies, but implement, put into place what we already know, and then do additional studies to the extent that there's still kinks in the system that need to be worked out.
The bureaucracy responds, obviously, to the problems of the city, and that includes the size of the city. The city of Atlanta has not grown in terms of any annexation since 1952 with the plan of improvement. Do you have in mind any ideas that would expand the city limits of Atlanta?
Well, it has grown. There was some annexation that was done a few years ago in South.
Small ones.
Right, small ones. Part of the problem with that is Atlanta's become landlocked in a lot of ways, in the sense that there are other unincorporated areas that have started to incorporate themselves, which makes it a lot more difficult to do the annexation that would help the city in the way that you'd like it to from a tax base standpoint. To the extent that annexation is not available to expand, and that's how a lot of cities, in fact, remain viable. That's how they grow their tax base. That's how they keep the revenues coming in, by bringing in new, more profitable or taxable properties. So to the extent that that's not possible, and wherever possible, of course, you'd pursue it. But to the extent that that's not possible, that's all the more reason for the tight coordination and collaboration with surrounding jurisdictions. Either a consolidation of services. I think that these new municipalities are too new for us to talk about there being some merger of any sort. But there are opportunities to cooperate for a more effective, efficient, cost-effective, efficient services delivery system, and I would pursue that any and everywhere that I could within this region, Fulton County and all the surrounding jurisdictions.